conversation now. We know the CJ has written to the President to dissolve Parliament. Let's bring in Daisy Amdanyu, who's the Executive Director, Community Advocacy and Awareness Trust, and Charles Kanjama, Advocate of the High Court. Thank you so much for making time for us this evening. Kanjama, I'll start with you. So what options does the President have from here?
Trevor, it's interesting that Article 261, paragraph 7, which the Chief Justice invoked, requires the President to dissolve Parliament. He doesn't have the option to decide not to dissolve Parliament. It uses the word shall. After the Chief Justice advises the President shall dissolve Parliament. Interestingly, Trevor, there is no timeline provided within which the President shall dissolve Parliament. So the assumption under the Constitution is that he should do it within a reasonable period. What the President can do, if he doesn't agree with the advice of the Chief Justice, or indeed what Parliament can do if they also don't agree, is to go back to court, because the advice given by the Chief Justice is advice that can be challenged in court by a case in the High Court. Of course, it is the very same courts that have recommended that the Chief Justice consider advising the President to dissolve Parliament. So going back to the courts may not necessarily succeed, but it is a possible action. The President can choose to delay. He has delayed in complying with other court orders, like the one on appointment of 41 judges, but that would amount to impunity. And myself as a lawyer, as a member of the Law Society of Kenya, I would really discourage the President from considering an action of impunity, which is indefinite delay in pursuing the advice of the Chief Justice.
All right, let's bring in Daisy. Daisy, you are part of the team that went to court on this. What did you envision and what is your reaction when you saw that the CJ has now written to the President to dissolve Parliament?
Well, first of all, I want to appreciate Chief Justice Maraga and even the judiciary, because they have been faithful interpreters of the Constitution, and particularly the provisions on inclusion and non-discrimination. When we went to court, it was to seek to compel Parliament to do its constitutional duty, because the law requires that Parliament should enact legislation to give life to the not more than 2/3 gender principle. You recall that the former Attorney General sought an advisory, and Parliament were given a clear timeline within which that legislation was to be in place. Parliament has consistently failed. And what we witness right now is a situation where we are progressively regressing. We've seen the cabinet is not compliant. All cabinet CASs, parastatal appointments, the diplomatic corps, they do not comply with the 2/3 gender principle. So it's an act of impunity. And when we understand that the Constitution is organized around the ideology of inclusion and participation of the people, then we need to understand that the 2/3 gender principle is a key cornerstone, because it's about enfranchising half of the population. So when Parliament acts with such gross impunity that they do not abide by the Constitution from which they draw the powers and privileges that they exercise, then we are going down a slippery slope. And this action is not just about the 2/3. It is time that Kenyans began to ask themselves the question of whether, as a country, we are committed to constitutionalism and the rule of law.
Okay. And Kanjama, you know, I'm looking at Article 136 of the Constitution here. It says that the election of the President shall be on the same day as the general election of members of Parliament. Does the dissolution of Parliament then mean the election of the President is also in the offing?
No, Trevor, it does not. If you look very keenly at Article 101 of the Constitution of Kenya, it provides for situations in which the seat of a member of parliament would be declared vacant. And one of those situations is where the Constitution provides for it, which would be the case in this situation. And when that happens, what is held is a by-election, not a general election.
Yeah.
So the interpretation of what has transpired under Article 261 and the advice of the President is that the advice of the Chief Justice, the President, if the President dissolves Parliament, what we will have is not a general election, but a by-election in all 290 constituencies in the National Assembly, the 47 Senate seats, and also the special seats both in the National Assembly and the Senate. So this will be a by-election, and the term of the parliament that would then come into office would only be until August 2022. That is according to a clear interpretation of the constitutional text.
So Kanjama, then that's actually the next thing I was supposed to go to, because now when does the new term of the parliament begin and when does it end for those who are serving? And 2022, when now the presidential election is coming, does everybody else then goes to the election?
Okay, so we are assuming that the president decides to dissolve parliament.
Yeah.
Under Article 101, once he decides to dissolve parliament, the speakers of the Senate and the National Assembly are required within 21 days to inform the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission that certain vacancies have arisen. So the speakers also have a role. And then Article 101 requires that the elections are done within 90 days of the vacancy arising. And the vacancy arises on the day the president dissolves parliament. So within those 90 days, IEBC is required to carry out elections, and the new parliamentarians then become seated immediately after the election results, I guess within 14 or 21 days. So if that was to happen in the next few weeks, it would mean around December this year or January next year, the elections would have happened and a new parliament would be seated. But because this would be by-elections, they do not result in an extension of the term of the 12th parliament. That is according to my interpretation. So that this parliament would then be seated until August 2022, when you will have general elections involving both the presidency, the gubernatorial elections for governors and MCAs, and now the elections for members of parliament, including senators.
Yeah. Daisy, this is an interesting quagmire that we find ourselves in a country, as a country, because even IEBC itself is not fully constituted. Are you confident that should the president actually go ahead and dissolve parliament, will they be able to pull off a by-election, like Kanjama puts it?
And I think, Trevor, that is the question that we must ask ourselves, because aside from the fact that Parliament is improperly constituted, we now have a proper declaration that Parliament is unconstitutionally constituted. So that now calls to question all the actions and decisions of Parliament. But aside from that, remember that Parliament is not just about the 2/3 gender rule. Parliament enters into bilateral agreements. It makes agreements around the borrowing of this country, you know. So Parliament is in the eye of the storm, and as is Kenya. Because remember, Kenya sits in the community of nations. By disobeying its own constitution, it calls to question the country's ability to honor its international obligations and international covenants. So these acts of impunity have now come to a point where now we are staring at the reality of a complete crisis. because IEBC's improper constitution has been deliberate. Remember that the executive, the president, and parliament failed to put in place a recruitment panel to replace the commissioners who resigned. So these are successive acts of impunity that are now culminating to a point where, as a nation, we are actually staring at a real crisis. And so I go back to what I'm saying, that if indeed we are governed by the rule of law as a country and constitutionalism, we need to come to the point where we ask ourselves, when we have the kind of leadership, because we have a political leadership in this country, executive and legislature, that actually does not adhere to the rule of law. What does that mean for us as a country? The two-thirds gender principle has now exposed the underbelly of where impunity takes a nation. It is not about women. This is about the rule of law. This is about constitutionalism. Are we going to be governed by the constitution to which our leaders have sworn fidelity to? That is the question that we must deal with.
All right. And Kanjama, another question that comes through is that the same constitution gives registered voters a right to elect a person of their choice. And even if a by-election is held, say, for example, like you're mentioning, in all the 290 constituencies, what are the guarantees then that that new parliament will adhere to the two-thirds gender rule? Because voters essentially elect who they want.
Trevor, that is actually the argument that has been made by the Speaker of the National Assembly, Justin Muturi, in communication is issued today. He has actually recognized that the Constitution does not prescribe a specific mathematical formula to get the 1/3 or 2/3 gender rule implemented in Parliament. That even if we were to go to a fresh election, if we do not address some of the other underlying issues, including cost, including cultural matters, and including also political parties enabling women to vie, we will still end up with a parliament that is non-compliant. And Trevor, let me say that one of the reasons why Parliament has found itself in the current quagmire is because all the proposals to implement Article 27(8) on the 2/3 gender rule, read together with Article 81, have been requiring actual constitutional amendments to change the structure of Parliament. And so some observers are concerned that those attempts to implement the constitutional requirement to implement the 2/3 gender rule have required a very high bar of constitutional amendment. There has not yet been any significant proposal that involves only amendment of statutes. In other words, normal acts of Parliament. So this is a challenge that Parliament has been unable to deal with because there have been no statutory proposals. And in the case that was taken before the High Court by Center for Rights, Education and Awareness, that gave rise to the decision that Parliament has failed to comply with the gender rule, Parliament stated that by some few amendments in the Elections Act that they did a few years ago, they had implemented Article 100, which is the one on affirmative action. But the court said none of those provisions referred to gender principles. There was none of them which was very specific about the gender principle. So those were not sufficient efforts. They were not focused on the 2/3 gender principle. But let us not forget, Trevor, that Parliament is being asked to implement the two-thirds gender principle not only in respect to Parliament, but in respect to all elective bodies and appointive bodies. And I like saying it is a curious fact that even the Supreme Court itself, with its previous arithmetic of 2 women judges and 5 men judges before the retirement of Justice J.B. Ojwang, was not compliant arithmetically with the two-thirds gender rule. So it is a very complicated issue, and that is what Speaker Muturi has been saying, that it is not only Parliament that is not strictly compliant. I think what Speaker Muturi has failed to note is that under Article 27, the requirement is for Parliament to pass a law, not just in relation to itself, but also in relation to other elective and appointive bodies.
Ladies and gentlemen,
and I think Parliament has the ability to bring its own bill, because we're in a presidential system. Any member of Parliament could have brought a bill to implement the two-thirds gender rule, at least by statutory amendment.
All right,
they failed to.
We really have to leave it there for now. It's a hot debate, and I'm sure we'll have this discussion again. Daisy Amdanyi, Executive Director, Community Advocacy and Awareness Trust, and Charles Kanjama, Advocate of the High Court, will pontificate on this issue in the coming broadcast. But